everyone, and welcome to the Love Like Crazy podcast. We're your hosts, Jay and Stacy Coleman, and we're here in our home studio, and we have a great guest for you today that I'm so excited about this conversation.
Yeah, to be honest with you, we have actually laughed so much this morning already just in visiting. We have our good friend Isabella Payne with us.
Yes, we're so excited to have her with us.
Now, before we dive into this, I do want to thank all of our listeners for being a part of this podcast. This has just been so much fun watching this grow over these last couple of years. And so I would say this to you. If you're enjoying this, make sure that you like this. On the YouTube channel, specifically, subscribe. Share it. Leave us a comment. We love to hear feedback from our listeners, and it actually helps us to push the podcast forward and to grow it. So thank you so very much for being a part of this. So Isabella, great to have you with us today.
It's great to be here. I'm excited.
We're excited about you being here today.
Perfect.
And so why don't we do this? I know that you two kind of hang out all the time, and y'all talk and all that kind of stuff, girl talk. But I kind of actually feel a little left out. But so today,
we want you to be included today.
Yeah, let's do this. I know that you just wrapped up college recently.
Yes, yeah.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us where you're at. What's going on in life right now?
Okay, so grew up North Louisiana. Grew up in North Louisiana. Moved to Central in 2013, and went to Central High School. Loved it. I actually did a lot. I didn't know anybody going into Central. And so I really thought it was going to be kind of like the movies where, everybody wants to be friends with a new girl. And like, I'm going to have all these friends. And I remember getting in my dad's truck that first day after school and just bawled my eyes out. Like, it was horrible. We call it the dark days because it was so bad. But it has taught me a lot. And I think that was a huge turning point in my life when I was a freshman, because freshmen are weird. Nobody really wants to talk anyway. And it literally was the pathway for me to be outgoing, and like, I'm not afraid to talk to people now because of that. And so moving on from living in Central, I went to Southeastern for college. Loved Hammond. That was a great place to live.
Tommy's Pizza.
I've only went one time.
No way.
Okay.
I know we talk about it all the time. But
the boys love Tommy's Pizza. And to me, it's okay.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was fine.
It's not
I'm
Johnny's.
a Mexican. It's not. I love Johnny's Pizza so much. Hammond was great. And I loved being closer to home. Like, I could come home and eat dinner with mom and dad if I wanted to. And then, wake up the next morning and go to class. Like, it's not, a lot of people commute. But I just loved being out there in Hammond. And then really felt like I wanted to do occupational therapy, and really felt like that's kind of my calling, for my career. And so applied for a couple of different, now it's out-of-state jobs. Out-of-state schools. I didn't think about tuition, but it's okay. We roll with it.
You don't when you're young.
No, you don't. And
but your parents do.
Yes.
So I applied for some out-of-state places, because, why not? Just go for it. And so I ended up going to South Alabama in Mobile. Loved Mobile. Got to live by the beach, which was awesome. And then it was only 3 hours from dad, so I could come home when I wanted to. And then in December of 2023, I graduated OT school, and I've been working. I just made a year in February, and I work with kids half the week and older adults the other half of the week. So it's very rewarding. I enjoy it, kind of both ends of the lifespan. And I think getting to bless people and families when they're younger, because, maybe their child has a disability or things are a little harder for them to do, and kind of navigating that. And then with my older adults, being able to help them, on things that we take for granted all the time, it's a little harder for them. And so getting to kind of help people at both ends, I have really enjoyed the split. It's a little crazy sometimes, but I enjoy going to work every day.
That's
right
awesome.
now. I'm a year in, but we'll see.
Well, you need to love what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I really do enjoy what I do. So, but yeah, living in Central now, and it's good to be back home. I know when I moved back home and getting to go back to Journey, I missed that like community, because I grew up with that in Calhoun in North Louisiana, going to church and just seeing people in fellowship. And it's, I missed that when I was in college and stuff, because you really don't have like a home church. And at South Alabama and Mobile, we went to a couple of different churches, but I've thoroughly enjoyed getting back to Journey and just
You
being
missed
here.
us.
Yes, I did.
Well,
I
we
did.
missed you too.
Yeah, we missed you.
I mean, talking about North Louisiana, that was because we're from North Louisiana as well, not as far north as you grew up. I just remember meeting when I met your mom.
Mhm.
That was the main thing that connected us, was when I heard that she was from North Louisiana. I was like, oh, that's my girl. That's my girl. And we
It's
just,
a people.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
It's
is.
that draw.
It is.
You hear,
Yeah,
you're like,
uh-huh.
oh, it's so
Uh-huh.
people.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, you're
Yeah.
from where I'm from.
And people will say North Louisiana, and I didn't realize how big people consider North Louisiana.
Mhm.
Sometimes people will say like, oh, I'm from blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And I'm like, they said North Louisiana, so I'm rolling with
That's
it.
right.
I'm like, I know
you
they're
don't
my
even
people.
have
I'm
to
like, I
know-
don't even know where it was. I don't know
Right.
what
You
it's
don't have
called.
to know exactly, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Those are
you're
my people.
We found out when we lived in Lafayette that anything above Opelousas is considered a Yankee.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
we moved to Lafayette, and the people are like, como se va? Are you, they're like, where are you? You from Texas? And I'm like,
They
why
did,
would
they
you say
thought-
we're from Texas?
Yeah.
And they're like, what's your accent? I'm like, what y'all talking about?
Come on, we don't have an accent.
But you get around somebody like your mom, yeah, you got an accent.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't hear mine, but I hear somebody else's.
That's right. That's right.
That's so right.
Yeah, a very, very quick connection we had, definitely.
Yeah, I know that instant, it's just kind of an instant connection with your family, with your parents.
Yeah.
And Stacy and your mom became fast friends.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And, it was kind of fun to watch that relationship because your mom was like you,
Yes.
so much fun to be around.
I know.
And I know that
Such a
that's
fun person.
probably not an aspect of the story that you like to focus on, but you've walked through you and your dad both,
Yeah.
some very difficult seasons.
Yeah.
And I think that's whenever we, I know your mom and Stacy were acquaintances, they were friends, but
Mhm.
whenever Savannah got ill,
Yeah.
that's whenever the connection really started to form.
Right.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
tell
Tell
us
us
what
about your
happened.
sister.
Yeah. So, grew up, mom would always say we lived the American dream, and it was like without a white picket fence. Because we had like 3-wheelers and mud and all that kind of stuff.
That's
So,
right. North Louisiana.
Yeah. Back
Go
in
mud
North
riding.
Louisiana. But it was me and Savannah. Savannah, it was 3 years and 9 months. So we always said just 4 years older than me. And normal sisters, I know y'all had boys, but sisters fight just as much. And we could get physical sometimes too. But it was fun getting to have somebody, because her friends, honestly, like, were bigger sisters to me too. And then she'd hang out. So we weren't so far apart. And we were just I love my family. Like now I hear stories about like some of my friends and what they grew up with. And I'm like, even more grateful for what I had. Family vacations. I know y'all did family vacations, stuff like that. Just a very close family. Grew up in the church, and I mean, mom and dad were a part of every committee you could come up with, and Sunday school and VBS. I mean, we were all in. And so we went to, right before my 9th grade year, my dad got an offer like to be promoted with his job, but to do that, he'd have to move to Baton Rouge. And so I remember, like I said, I remember thinking like, well, I'm going to be, that's fine with me. I'm going to be the cool new girl. And Savannah stayed in Monroe and went to ULM and wanted to do speech pathology. She was an RA with housing. I mean, she was like doing great. And mom always said, she was like, when people go to college, usually the kid moves away and
Right.
the family moved away. So, but it wasn't bad because all my family's in North Louisiana. So it was really just me, mom, and dad that moved down here to Central. So we go to, Savannah's a freshman in college. I'm a freshman in high school. And then, she'd come down and visit on the weekends and things, attend New Year's Eve parties at your house.
Well, let's expound on that, because we were talking about one of the connections was you wind up at you and Savannah came to a New Year's Eve party here at our house.
Uh-huh.
And that was the one where the boys built this huge fire and we thought they were burning the house down. But
It was massive.
It's funny to go back and talk about those things because of the connection now that we have.
Right,
So,
exactly. And like getting to know your boys now as we've gotten older, it's been a great experience with that. I'm so glad Savannah was there with me. Like how cool to experience, being that new kid with your sister. I wish I could have brought her to high school. It got better, by the way. I did have friends.
That's good.
I'm making it sound, I loved high school. Those first 3 weeks were rough, but we made it out.
Got past it.
So when the flood happened in 2016, Savannah was a senior in college. I was a senior in high school. And we went into, like everybody else, flood relief mode. And I mean, we just ripping up carpet, and the self-service was so bad. So Savannah was like trying to call. And I remember Savannah was like, I'm coming down there. And mom's like, your Chevy Cruze can't get in this water. Like people are on boats right now. So, and that's how Savannah was. Her heart, I mean, she's like serving. I mean, mom used to say, just to give you an idea of Savannah, she would say, if everybody in the world is happy, Savannah's happy. If everybody in the world is unhappy and Isabella's happy, that's fine. That's kind of how it went. I I've gotten better, but that really is. Savannah was she was a people pleaser, and not like let people walk all over you. Like she loved to serve others, and she was just compassionate, a cheerleader. Like she actually cheered, but like she cheered for you. Like you just knew that about her. And that's why she had so many good friends that, it's just, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I've learned so much more about my sister since she has passed, just because of how she affected other people. So the flood happens, and 10 days after the flood, my mom gets a call from a friend of Savannah's, and she just says, Savannah's sort of unresponsive. We're taking her to the hospital. That's all we know. And I am 17 at the time, senior in high school, think I know everything. And honestly, I don't remember much of that drive up, because Dad and Mom drove in their truck, and then I drove Mom's car, because I really am thinking, okay, well, we need to have 2 separate cars, because once Savannah gets out of the hospital, we'll come home. Like, that was my mindset of just, she's sick. This is bad, but we don't know what's going on. But like, that's going to, the doctors will fix it, and she's going to be fine. I don't know what Mom and Dad were thinking. And like, I don't remember that trip as much. I know we were booking it to go to North Louisiana. But I know that whole time, and even when she was in the hospital, Savannah's okay. Like I knew, like it's going to be fine. Like that happens in movies, like
she's so full of life. She has to recover.
Right. Exactly. And just that comfortability of like, that's, we're praying for it. So it's going to happen how we want it to happen. So we got to the hospital, we're in the emergency room, and that was probably the last time Savannah and me had a real like talking conversation. And there was a cool way we got to talk after, but just, she was sick and we didn't know what was going on. In that moment, she starts coding, nurses rush in, doctors rush in. And I'm telling you, I literally felt like I was in a movie. Like it was just like, this isn't my real life right now. Going from like, you kind of have the American dream, and then this,
this can't be real.
It was a lot. Yeah. And so they pull me and Mom and Dad into a room, and it's just us 3. And I just remember, like, I don't know if it was Mom's phone or Savannah's, and I just got at the phone, and we had some family out in the waiting room, and I texted our old youth pastor that we grew up with and just said, I need you to pray for Savannah right now. And it's when I'm older and I look at that situation, I'm like, in the midst of all of that, I went to God. And my relationship with God was probably not where it needed to be at that aspect, but like we had nothing else. And I know that kind of doesn't sound the best now. Like that should be the first person we go to. But how telling is that to me now, where I'm like, man, I need to pray more. I mean, but in that moment, this is the only thing we have. We don't know what's going on. So fast forward, Savannah ended up, she just got really sick really fast. And they said, they did blood work and they did all this kind of stuff to figure out what it was. And they still did not know. I mean, it was kind of like a bizarre, like we don't know what happened. And then just one thing after the other, where she stayed in the hospital for 10 and a half weeks, and 3 weeks in a hospital in Monroe. And then I guess 7.5 weeks at a burn unit, because she ended up having to have skin grafts. I mean, we ended up having to amputate. They were amputating some things just because her fingers and her toes were just so, they had to do a couple of different protocols. Like she just got really sick.
Yeah. Did they ever discover what it actually was?
I know that there was like some bacteria in her blood, and I might be wrong on switching those things, but we never got like a, hey, this was in, because I know we went to the beach before, somebody said, well, was she around like the flood water and stuff? And we're like, no, like it really, like, we do not know. Yeah. We don't. And she went septic, and that's kind of when things got really bad. And so,
your mom used to say it was an unknown origin.
Yeah. Yeah. She's so much better at wording than I was. But yeah, exactly. Origin. And it's kind of, to not know is kind of like, I've just kind of come to peace with that, of just like, I'm not going to know. But anyway, so during that 10.5 weeks, we were loved and prayed on. And I honestly took it for granted in the moment, when now that I'm older, I'm like, wow. I mean, just there was always somebody at that waiting room. It became our home.
There was a huge outpouring of love.
Goodness. From Central, Ruston. I mean, I remember
from everywhere.
Everywhere. Like we would get, and I learned more about it now, because in the moment you don't know what you're doing.
Right. You're just kind of in a blur.
Yeah, exactly. Like women's prisons groups, prayer groups praying for Savannah in Arizona. It was like, wow, how many times was my sister prayed for? That's huge. And so at that point I still think like Savannah's really sick, but she's going to be okay. So I came back down, school started back up. And so I would go up on the weekends and then come to school. I stayed with the Lasanes. Love that family. They were our next door neighbors. What a blessing they are. And, anyway, so I'm still thinking Savannah's going to be okay. And then, one night we were actually playing Live Oak. So I was cheering on the sidelines and Savannah passed away in Shreveport. And, Mom and Dad, I share this so much more now. Mom said, in that moment, we weren't talking about her grades. We weren't, we knew the time was coming. And she said, we weren't talking about her grades or, how many followers she had on Instagram or how many state championships they won. She was like, we were talking about how much people loved her and how she loved others. And I remember when Mom said that, every time I'm like bawling my eyes out, because that really happened. And what do I always think like, if that was me, what are we talking about? So that was kind of Savannah's story. And so from that, Mom really took and ran with it, with the whole grief process.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, that's when, whenever Savannah got sick, that's when your mom and we connected even more through that. I know Jay and did we make one or two trips? A couple of trips.
Yeah, I was up there one time with Shreveport.
I think we went to Monroe once and Shreveport.
Okay,
once.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we were actually able to go into the room, with Savannah at that last time. And so I remember all of the people being in the waiting room and just the outpouring of love.
Yeah.
And and I think that truly is probably what kept your parents going.
Absolutely.
Just that support, not only just, I know somebody's praying. No, I can actually see that they're here and they're supporting.
Yeah.
And just the love that was shown, to your parents. I think someone provided a place for them to stay so that they could be
5
close
minutes away from the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they were able to be there with her and not have to leave. And so it was just, I know it was a very, very difficult and uncertain time, for your parents, but that was definitely when I connected more with your mom.
What's beautiful about that is you actually see the church in action.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
What's really awesome about that is your mom and dad were not just, what we say CEOs, not just Christmas and Easter only type Christians. They didn't just go to church once a year, twice a year. They were actually involved.
Yeah.
The body of Christ, the family of God. I mean, it's like they were actively involved in everything they could be.
Yeah.
And so as a part of the church in North Louisiana, and then whenever they moved us down with us, the next thing you know, people just, the church comes together and says, we need to rally around this family.
And it becomes natural. Like, it's like, oh, we're doing it. We're praying for them. And we're like, there were so many people that would say, I'm praying. And that look where you're like, they're praying, it is sincere. And it was 100%. We were surrounded by great people because most of those people we knew family and through church.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Which I would say that one thing to learn from that, for maybe some of our listeners, be involved in the local church.
Absolutely.
Don't just go once a year, but be involved, become family, get to know people, because every single one of us will go through a crisis at some point in life. And the body of Christ wants to rally around you. Yeah. But in order to do that, they have to know you.
Right. So, yeah. Nobody's going to come to the waiting room and stay until 11 o'clock at night. Maybe they'll do it, but having those deep connections is something that was so valuable to us.
But not only were y'all going through this with Savannah at the hospital, but the flood had just happened. Yeah. So your parents left their home that was in a mess.
And literally my uncle's church, a group of men went and fixed our house.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
There for a second, I was like, wait, is there another sibling we don't know about? What's happening here?
We're going to let it all out today.
Secrets exposed on Love Like Crazy.
Oh my goodness.
My brother. Sorry, Dad.
There's so much more to this story than I knew.
We're going to take a turn real quick.
Yeah.
No, well, that was such a devastating time because I know we went through the flood, our home and the church, we had to rebuild and stuff like that. So I know that took a huge burden off of your parents to know, okay, I can be focused on my child that's here in the hospital. And I know very much concerned about you as well, where you were at that time. And then to not have to worry about my house is a mess. They went and took care of that. That was a blessing.
Well, I want to know this because I know that you're 17 years old whenever this happens, and you're going through crisis on top of crisis. Right. The flood, your sister, this illness, and then she passes away. She steps into the presence of the Lord. How do you process that? How do you, as a 17-year-old, look, I know that your family had a strong, healthy relationship with the Lord. So we know that the Lord is going to comfort you, but
Right.
regardless, it's still something that's
It's a
traumatic
lot.
to walk
Yeah.
through.
I will tell you, like, being 17, you really do think you have it figured out. And then on top of that, I knew the whole time Savannah's going to be okay. So when I get a phone call, Isabella, she passed away. She's not here with us anymore, but she's in heaven. My world was rocked. Like
Because you were not expecting that call. Okay.
No. And I mean, honestly, I knew, like, there was times, and Mom and Dad didn't realize it was going to happen like that either, because there was times where she would get really sick and then
she would get better. Right.
And so it was like, Savannah's having a rough day today, but and then we got good news, So when I got that call, you just crumble. Like, it was just kind of like, is this real world? I mean, what is going on? And in that moment, and for the weeks after, it's like a blur. Like,
Right.
I don't remember as much. I think the hardest part for me was just like being an only child now, like when I go to Thanksgivings, like those first are always the hardest, for me. Cause I remember, and I love my family, I love my cousins and stuff. But when you have a sibling, you're like, oh, well, we know they're going to be there and we can go, hang out. And then you don't. And so there was a lot of some like just hard times where, and I'm not a huge crier, but man, did I cry. I mean, it was just a lot of just the missing her, and I will say Mom helped me so much learning how to grieve Savannah, because Mom, she did some research. She was so in tune with her relationship with Christ. And then, she could talk about it, but that's how she healed, where I would start talking about my sister and I'm like, I can't talk about it right now, and that's okay. Like, everybody does it differently. But because I was 17, it was just a lot. I mean, it was very, it was overwhelming. And then, but I will tell you, go back to the community. I also was so loved and prayed for and cared for, to where I was able to still laugh and have a good time. Like my rest of my senior year, I loved my class, and it was just the outpouring of love and just getting to hang out with people. And I was a lot more intentional, like, I want to spend time with Mom and Dad. I want to spend time with my friends. So it did shift, during that. But I know those first couple weeks, and I think that's typical of just like,
you're in shock.
What are we doing? Exactly. Yeah. And so it was a lot to be 17 and go through that, but it definitely shaped my life again on the path. Like, when I started college, I was a lot more intentional. If I wanted to go home and spend time with my family, I'm doing it. Like, I don't really care if my friends were like, go, you can do that.
It kind of really helped you understand what's really important.
Yes, exactly. And I remember still to this day, like, Mom would say Savannah had, and that's when Mom started like talking about Savannah, but she was saying, what if you had 10 and a half weeks to live? Because that's what Savannah had. And really taking that and running with it on, like, we don't know, this could be our last, Tuesday morning. You don't know.
Just to appreciate the moment
exactly.
that you're in.
So it really did help me, my college years, appreciate that and have those intentional relationships. But I will say, I mean, there was times, I remember one time specifically, I was thinking about, because it's not all, like, grief is, coming to terms with it. Like, there are days where it was hard.
Absolutely.
I remember one night I was so upset. I was thinking about one instance. We were in Disney for the first time. We weren't really a Disney family. No hate to Disney families, but we were.
Miss Stacy's a Disney person.
I
not
do
so
like
much.
Disney.
We never went. We were like beach and skiing, stuff like
yes.
that. You could be both, but whatever. Anyway, so we went for cheer, and Savannah got to go one year, and I just kept playing it over in my head. I remember her coming up to me, and she's like, "Hey, Isabella, I'm going to ride this ride. You want to go with me?" And I said, "No, I'm gonna go with my friends on this one." And I kept playing that over and over, like the regret I had. Like, that was an instance where I could have hung out with Savannah, and I am just losing it. And I just texted Mom and I said, "Are you up?" And she, right there in my room, and she just prayed over me. She held me. And I mean, I'm 18 years old at this point, and I just, like, that kind of stuff, those instances where I was just cared for and loved, helped me so much more,
Well,
with that grief.
And that's part of the processing of grief, is that the coulda, woulda, shoulda,
right?
And all of the little things that you don't think of in the moment, but it comes back to you, and you're like, oh, why didn't I say or do this?
Right.
And I think everybody deals with that, and it's just processing through it. And really, I mean, we can't really hold on to that kind of regret, I mean, because it'll just eat away at you. And I definitely remember your mom, like, being concerned about you now being an only child, and how could she help you to process that. She was actually, I feel, more worried about you or concerned about you processing everything than she even was herself. Well,
I think your mom's way of processing and dealing with the grief, she was
talking about Savannah.
Yes. Talking about Savannah.
And I honestly think helping like me and Dad kind of go through grief helped her too.
I've sat in counsel with people through the years that are walking through things that are difficult. They've lost a loved one. And probably one of the worst things I've ever heard. And I've actually fallen into this category myself. Like, and men, I think, do this a lot. Like, well, I'm just not going to talk about that person, because if I don't talk about them, then I'm not sad. And it's all you really do is take that grief and stuff it down inside of you. And your mom, wow, she had it down. Like, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about my daughter.
Yeah.
And that's when she really, she launched out into her ministry and traveled telling people about Savannah's story.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And I also think, I know y'all have talked about it before, like the importance of talking about them. I mean, my family, people that I don't know, they still think my mom and my sister are, here on this earth. Cause I'm like, my sister used to do that, or like my mom does, she made that too, it's probably better, but like things like that. So I think our family just took that and ran with it. I mean, we're constantly like, do you remember when Savannah and me did this, or hearing stories? I mean, that has helped me and Dad grieve for sure. And just kind of, we bring light of it, like, they're not here, but man, did we have some good times,
That's
right. So that
well, and a lot of people, they think that it's going to be painful if they bring up that person that's no longer here. But really, we want to talk about our person. We want to remember all of those things. And I know because both of my parents are gone, it's like when I come across somebody that knew both of them and they want to talk about that time in my life, I'm all over it.
Yes, exactly.
You want to relive those happy times and stuff. And so, that's a healthy way to process it. And your mom did a great job at that and just changing the perspective of it. Yes, there is this loss, but let's talk about the importance of appreciating life while we're here on earth.
Right.
But then, hey, there's life eternal,
right.
And are you ready to go to heaven?
Yeah.
That's one thing I loved about your mom is the focus was, yes, I've lost my daughter, my child, but I know where she is,
right.
And your mom was just so solid. And I say your mom, your dad too, just so solid in their faith.
Right.
And it was, I was grateful because that, not long after that is when you and Stephanie really started connecting and growing in your relationship. And we had prayed for a long time about different friends and whatnot in ministry. And your mom had a great understanding of ministry and like what we walk through as pastors. And so just a good friend, to you, and y'all traveled a lot. I knew when they were traveling, it was like, they're going to North Louisiana.
We're in trouble.
Who knows when we'll see him again?
I remember one time, Stacy, she said, I'm like, where are y'all going? She's like, I don't know. Stephanie just told me we're going to Mama's house.
Yeah, we're going to Mama's. Yeah. I mean,
Mama's house.
We just had the best time. And Jay used to say, like, you really needed a friend like Stephanie, because she was so outgoing and just so fun loving. And, so extroverted, where I'm a little bit more introverted. I live in this extroverted world. I operate in it, but she really pulled me out of my shell, and that was just, so all of my memories of my friendship with her is very joyful.
Yeah.
Very joyful memories. And so, we, like I said, we connected more so, through all of this with her, your family losing Savannah.
Yeah.
And out of that, she began to, all of these people that would come to the hospital and that were praying for Savannah. I say she went on a little tour, talking tour.
She literally called it. She was like, this is my thank you tour.
Yeah,
like,
my thank you tour.
Telling those people thank you. Yeah.
And so she just would travel and go to, she went to men's groups at churches.
Yeah.
She went to, you name it. If they asked her,
she's going.
She was getting in her car and heading that way.
And I get nervous talking in front of people. Like if I have a speech or something like that, which I don't have speeches all the time, but like, in class or whatever. And Mom, she's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to just pray about it and we're going to see what happens. I'm like, man, how cool, but that was her gift. That was her
absolutely.
gift for sure.
She definitely flowed in that. And so I had the opportunity to travel with her, not all the trips that she took, but quite a few. But yeah, the one that Jay remembered, it was really my best memory of traveling with her. We went to North Louisiana out in Shoe Drent. And now that's kind of out in the woods,
that's the boondocks.
Yeah,
that's the boondocks.
100%.
Okay. And so, North Louisiana.
Is,
and so she was asked to speak at a widows group. And I think it was just somebody who probably knew your mom as a young girl, was like, hey, come and, share your story and everything. And so I went with her and we had the best time. And that was the cool thing about Stephanie, connecting with just, we both understood ministry, the aspect of ministry and going to minister to these women. And so I was like, you go over and you prepare, get ready to speak. And I didn't know any of these women, and I'm like welcoming them. It was a potluck. I'm receiving the dishes.
Somebody's house?
It was at Meemaw's house. Okay, because I said, "Where are we going?" And she goes, "I don't know. The text just says it's at Meemaw's
house."
And I'm like, "Well, I can't wait to meet her." And so there were so many Meemaws there. I mean, it was.
I hope there's chicken and dumplings.
It was.
I mean, it was the biggest spread of home cooking you could ever imagine, and we just had the most wonderful time just visiting with these ladies, and some of them were extremely elderly but they made their way there because they wanted to hear your mom's story. And so I mean we had a great time just traveling. And I was telling you the other day, she had her road trip playlist. She was really big into all of her music. And so she said, okay, look, our first trip we were traveling, she goes, okay, look, I start off with this one song, get me going, as I drive. And I was like, okay. And I think she was afraid to tell me. So it was a secular song. And I think she was afraid to tell me, because I was her pastor's wife.
Yeah.
And
the true Stephanie comes out.
We're pastors. We only listen to hymns.
We only listen to the holy music.
That's right.
And I was like, it's okay. She's like, yeah, it's Rascal Flatts.
I was gonna say, what song was it? Was it like AC/DC or something?
Yeah, it was Rascal Flatts.
Wasn't it?
I'm going blank.
It's a song
I
off
know it.
Cars.
Life is a highway.
Life is a highway.
Cars.
Yeah, Cars.
I'm so proud of
I don't know why I just totally went blank on that. I mean,
remember
that's
you
our
telling me
song.
about that. She listened to Life is a Highway by
Life is a
Rascal
Highway.
Flatts.
And so I said, oh, girl. I said, I love that song. And you know what I told her?
She said, and what she, because I know her well enough to say this. I went to high school with the fiddle player for Rascal Flatts.
Sure did.
Because she tells everybody that.
Yeah, absolutely. You should put that on a t-shirt.
He doesn't play, I don't think anymore.
He doesn't play for me anymore.
Play fiddle for, but he did. And
Fiddlin' John Johnson.
Yes. Oh my
gosh.
That
was his name. That's a name.
Yes. I'm sending this.
Well.
I'm sending this episode to them. I am, so that they know. No, it was just so much fun to be able to go on these road trips, and we did. We started out with Life as a Highway, and so that is just like almost like the theme song. It was the theme song for everything.
You said this earlier, and the cool part about your mom was she had the ability to pull things out of her. I could see them in her, but I couldn't get them out of her. Your mom, pull your big curl panties up, that kind of stuff. But she would talk about, well, just do it, you know?
Absolutely.
And so the women's conference, she was like, just do it.
She was a huge encouragement.
This podcast,
for that.
I remember her coming home and talking about Stephanie researching podcasts and all.
That was what we were doing.
Yeah.
We were researching, and I'm like, girl, you got to find out the details.
You were like, I can so see Mom being like, how do they do that? How do they do that online? We need to do that. 100%.
And then she started talking about a podcast. I'm like, I don't want to do a podcast.
And look at
Here
you
we
now,
are.
baby.
Here we are. Thanks, Stephanie.
Look at you now.
Mom's like, got it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure our listeners at this point, based off of kind of how we're talking, they realize that your mom has gone home to be with the Lord. Do you want to kind of speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. So she was doing her best thing, living her life in 2016. Life. And then I was starting, I think I was about to be a junior in college in 2019. And she was driving home from tennis. She had started to do tennis, loved it. And driving home from tennis and taken unexpectedly. And I remember getting that phone call from my dad, and it was like, you talk about your life crumbles. I mean, it was just because going back to the comfortability thing, after Savannah died, I kind of thought, and this is not how it is, and I've learned that, but I really thought like, okay, Isabella Payne, check. She's had her big thing in life that's changed her life. Let's move on to the next person. That's not how God works. Yeah. And it's not that God's like, let this happen again, but I really did live more comfortably, like, at least, man, that was hard, but I got my people now, and I'm moving on or moving, figuring out life without
moving forward.
Like how to live life without Savannah. And so when Dad called me, I mean, it was just like, my knees hit the ground. Like it was a lot. And, so, from that point, just for her, because with Savannah, I mean, she was sick. But we still kind of thought, she's going to be okay. Where Mom, it's like, I texted her at 6:00 and at 9:00, she's not here on this earth. Like it was just, it happened so fast. And so, from that point on, I mean, I know me and Dad, he came and picked me up from Hammond that night, and we're just driving back. I mean, we're both, I don't even know what that conversation looked like, but it was just like, I don't even know what to say. And my grandmother, when Dad called my grandmother, the first thing she said, well, she's with Savannah. And I mean, I know we both kind of just kept talking about that and thinking about that. Because in that moment, that is all I could think about. Because I mean, it was like,
that was the one thing
I couldn't think about.
Right.
Yeah. Like I didn't want to think about anything on this earth. I was just like, just picturing Mom and Savannah and God. I was just like, hold on to that. That's what you're going to focus on. And, Mom was a hugger. And so was Savannah.
Yes.
So I'm like,
so they were hugging.
And that's all I was thinking about, because I wasn't ready for this. It was a lot. So when we lost Mom, once again, we see that outpouring love. And this time I'm older. I'm really figuring it out. Mom had prepared me, I learned, I talked about Savannah and Mom automatically, or, I could tell people don't know what to say, especially when it's happened like that. And, when I was 17, people would say, I know what you're going through. And I'm like, your pet gecko died. No, you don't. And then I'm like, you got defensive. Nobody's pet gecko died. Bad example. But people are just trying anything they can.
Mean well. They mean
well. Where
well.
when I was older, I'm like, and I kind of got like, they don't know what I'm going through. Well, now that when I was older and I lost Mom, people are saying that, and I'm like, they're just trying to encourage me and tell me that I'm not alone. And I took a lot more of those kind of words in when I was older with Mom.
Perspective had changed.
And that was because of what Mom had taught me, honestly.
Maturity will do that to you. It kind of changes the perspective of how you see things. It's like when you are grieving, and I've seen this so many times, people, they don't know what to say. So they're like, well, I'll say this because it'll make you feel better. And it's like, well, that didn't really make me feel better at all.
One time Mom was saying, I don't remember who it was, but somebody walked up to her and she was like, this just sucks. And Mom was like, yeah, it does. It was like just kind of owning it. Like, hey, this is a rough situation.
We're keeping it real.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's not always an answer for something, and just kind of like, this is hard. Goodness, and I've said that a few times to other people that, some friends that have lost people. It's like, sometimes you just have to own it and say like, this is a horrible situation, but man, God is with you. I am praying for you. And you can kind of change that, but it is. And as a maturity kind of aspect with Mom, like, at the visitation and all of that, it's like, these people just want to love on me, and I'm going to embrace it and hold on to that, and that helped me. But it's because, honestly, dealing with Savannah, how did I handle that situation? You get older, you kind of realize like, oh, I'm 17, I'm 20 now. I'm like, I don't have all the answers. And so kind of moving on with that. But definitely, I remember Mom talking about that. She's like, that was just kind of nice to hear. Like it was rough,
And I think you alluded to this earlier. You didn't realize it at the time, but your mom, through what y'all walked through with Savannah, she was preparing you to how to handle this.
And I think preparing me, my family members have said that same thing. I mean, like you just mentioned, talking in that short amount of time where Savannah passed away and Mom passed away, she did so much.
And she affected
so many people. And I mean, it helped me learn how to grieve with her. Like I felt like it was better how I handled the situation. I was also older, but like what she taught me about, it's okay to cry. There are days where I'm like, this is rough, mascara everywhere, but it's like, go there because I miss them so much. And I was so blessed for the years I had them, but then you make sure you get out, and you figure out who you need to go to, or you pray and you figure out, God, I'm about to go there and then we're going to get out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So
a lot of people,
that.
when a situation of great loss like that, or and it being traumatic as well, they want to isolate.
Right.
They pull out of community, which
Push other people away, which is not healthy.
You didn't do that. You ran to those that could help you and that would love on you, and you continue to talk about them.
Right.
And so you did a lot of things that were helping you to process things in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Because I know the connection that you and I've had, since I lost my mom when I was 18, was that I wasn't able necessarily to grieve in such a healthy way. We weren't really allowed to talk about her. And so I'm so glad to see that you're being able to process it. And, I've always, told you, I'm here for you as well, because I think if I would have had someone when I was 18 that had lost their mom that I could talk, like it would have helped me tremendously. And so you definitely, you don't want to isolate yourself. You want to draw to community, and you want to go to those that can help you.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to sit in those feelings.
Right.
And you're going to have a bad day, because what do we say? It's waves of grief that sometimes it's rougher than others. Those sea waters are really rough. And especially during milestones. And like you said, the first year, is always very difficult as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and I want to say this as well, because we've talked a lot about, Savannah and your mom, but your dad's been solid. It's been so,
yes.
I know the amount of grief that he must have walked through with this. And Tim, I know you probably watching or listening because you want to support your baby girl. So just
so proud of you.
I'd say just make sure you hit subscribe.
He's gonna be like, show me how to do it, Bill.
But he's been a rock through all this. So let's kind of take a few moments to talk about him a little bit.
Goodness.
I know he would. Don't talk about me, but
no, I will tell you. Like I'm hoping I'm not going to tear up. I love my father. Like, oh my goodness, and it's weird to think, like, would I go back and have mom and Savannah? Absolutely. But then I hear about people that have lost people and their families, get separated or they're not as close. And it was like after Savannah died, me, mom, and dad got close. After mom died, me and dad are like tight.
That's so good.
And I remember one time specifically, because mom would always text me like, I know you have your psychology exam at 8 a.m. Good luck. Moms just know. And dad's like, you still in college? I'm like, yeah, I am. And my first finals week without mom, it was just because I missed her like texting and stuff. And I got home and I'm just crying. I'm upset. I missed her. And dad comes in from work and we just cry and hold each other. And it was like, that was so vulnerable. And I'm like, my dad, grown man, and it's just like embracing me. And we've had so many times where we're just like, man, we miss him. I mean, he is just a wonderful, wonderful man. And he's shown me how to navigate loss and how to stay, connected with your Christian, fellowship and read your Bible and things like that. It's like, I'm constantly having role models to look up to.
Well, I must say this, that's a real man right there.
Yeah.
Because Stacy, when she lost her mom, her dad's response was, you don't talk about her anymore.
Well,
I don't want you to
know the Lord either.
Yeah, he did not know the Lord. He did not have Christian faith.
Yeah.
And so he was just like, I don't want to hear y'all talking about her anymore. But to your dad, to hear that, to just hold you and cry together, to me, that's a real man. He's teaching you how to grieve properly. Yeah. And I think that's possible because of his relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And he just, I just love him. And he's so great. I don't even know all I want to say. He's just awesome.
What is awesome about your dad is your mom was the larger than life personality. Your dad's, he's kind of quiet,
and
but then
if you get him by himself, he is so funny. I'm like, my jokes do not come from my mom. I'm like, it comes from Tim Payne, but he would never tell you. I just do it with my mom's personality where I'm like, everybody, I have jokes to say.
Oh, that is awesome. I love you, Dad. He's so awesome.
He is.
Well, how do you and your dad, what are some different ways that you feel like you honor their memory? And here's what I would say about that. To me, talking about them's probably top
I was
of the
going to say
list.
that's probably one of the biggest ones. Also, some things like people still, I mean, we talk about them all the time. We do things. There's sometimes where I'll do something. I'm like, I look at him. I'm like, Mom would have loved this. You know,
Yes.
we'll put ourselves in situations where we're helping somebody else or praying over, people, or just having simple conversations like, oh, Savannah would have loved that person. And just kind of, like you said, freely talking about them. I think sometimes I do things where, AKA this podcast, where I'm like, oh, Isabella, I don't know. I'm like, Stephanie Payne would have eaten this up and do it to honor them, So like things like that kind of happen in my life all the time. And I think Dad does the same thing. Like if there's we go to North Louisiana and spend time with our family, that has increased because it's like, man, I love my family. I love spending time with them, and things of this world can get busy really fast. And so honoring them by living our life like we should, like really thinking, that Tim McGraw song where it's like, live like you were dying. I think it's Tim McGraw, like we sing it, ha ha ha. But then you think about if there really was like a timestamp, 10 and a half weeks, we're gone, we would 100% live our lives differently. Yes. And it's, I think that sometimes I'm like, I'm going to spend all my money. I'm going to go on trips. Like, woohoo. You can't do that. I'm not going to do it, Dad. But like really living life, like, and being intentional and things like that. Like, I feel like I'm constantly trying to honor Mom and Savannah through that aspect of my life.
Okay. Can I tell you, you just said the word intentional. And that was one of the last things that your mom and I talked about. She said that the Lord was really impressing on her heart to just be more and more intentional about everything that she was doing, and especially with spending time with you. Mm-hmm. And so that, yes, we want everybody to hear that. Stephanie is telling you to be intentional.
Okay? That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that we say this with a lot of interviews that this has been fun, but it's it's been fun.
We'll be back for part 2.
Well, I think we probably will, because here's what's funny. I said this earlier. We were standing in the kitchen. It's like talking to Stephanie, because your mannerisms, your voice, and she was just so much fun, and you're always a lot of fun to hang out with as well.
I appreciate it. That's what I remember when I was younger. They're like, you're just like your mama, and I'm like, no, I'm not. You didn't
want to claim it, but now,
like, thank you so much.
Yes,
yeah,
you're a good mix of Tim and Stephanie.
I feel like I am. You are. Yeah, thank goodness.
Well, we've had a blast today. I just want to tell you how much we appreciate you coming in and sitting down.
Yeah. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all asking me. It was kind of a way to honor Mom and Savannah. I really appreciate it.
Well, yes, you've done a great job. This has just been a blessing. I mean, I know I've talked with a few people and I'm like, Isabella's going to be on the podcast, and they're like, that's going to be really good. So thank you to all of our listeners who are listening to this.
Well, and
please share it.
I've had, this has been a blast today, and I can't, like as you said, you called. I can't wait till part 2 comes out. So. But I just want to take a moment to thank all of our listeners for being a part of this today. And once again, if you have enjoyed this, make sure that you like it. Make sure that you click that little subscribe button on YouTube so that you get reminders of when the next episode is going to be coming out, and help us move this podcast forward. Share it with your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, your relatives, everybody you know. And as we talked about, make sure that you are intentional in living your life. If you only had 10 and a half weeks left, how would you live it? And I would say this to you: live it for Jesus. Let the love of Jesus and the compassion of Jesus show in your life every day. And so today, once again, thank you for being a part of this podcast. As always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Stacy.
And this is Love Like Crazy.